I'll put it like this. In the Pali text, in a way, it's like climbing up the mountain. And we start, like I started with Goenka, there's something to be done. It's very dedicated and dualistic. I used to actually feel a little bit uncomfortable when people, I used to get blessings from Goenka or the other teachers saying, good luck, I hope you succeed. And whatever, like a real sense of success and so on. So I started with that very much. So imagine that that's like climbing the mountain, and it's the beginning of the mountain, and you really feel there's a path, and you need to step by step, and you do need effort, and it needs slowly, when you're on the path, you begin to see the flowers by the side of the path, you begin to see the rocks, and you begin to feel the sky above and the earth beneath. And somehow or other, in a natural way, the sense of you belong to a bigger world will infiltrate, will come into the practice by itself. And you can call it presence. It's very often very simple to call it presence, which it would be, for example, Eckhart Tolle just talks about presence. And as you go higher and higher, I think that the effort gets less, the presence gets bigger, and eventually you're going to the top of the mountain, in which is the non-dual ultimate place we're talking about. Dzogchen would say would come down from the parachute down to the top of the mountain, and you're up there. So I think my sense is that the non-dual teaching of Dzogchen and Advaita non-teachers, or whoever talks to you, or the non-dual Buddha, will be in background all the time, and in a natural way you will let it grow and grow, and there'll be less emphasis on a dualistic sense of effort and I have to get somewhere. It will happen by itself if you keep that sense of the bigness of things as background, liberation as background, which grows naturally. And you'll find then that your practice itself will gradually have less effort in it, less sense of need to be somewhere or to do something. And by itself, you will feel the power of surrender. I remember Tsoknyi Rinpoche, one time I was in a retreat with him, and he just kept saying, be aware and then drop. So he used the word surrender, dropping. And so I think that, but at the beginning of the journey, it just may not touch us. We may not be able to understand that. It's okay. We feel there's a journey to be had. That's great. And so that the non-duality can be very light, but still in the background, even as mystery, even as a Zen koan. I don't know what it means, but there's something there that is beyond. And then let it grow naturally as we practice dualistically. The non-dual begins to grow in us in a rather natural way, and eventually it becomes dominant. So that's the way kind of I see both of them operating together. It changes as we go up the mountain. Let's look at briefly at the great Buddhist traditions, because you're talking about Zen, and maybe I say something radical now, but all great Buddhist paths include duality and non-duality, and they don't necessarily, they're not sorted out that says now you're practicing duality, now non-duality. It's very often, for example, in Zen, there is, I'll just, I saw a film, a beautiful film actually, which is done maybe I don't know, 30, 40 years ago, called Why Did Bodhidharma Go to the East? And it's a Korean Zen film, which is really lovely. And it was about a Korean Zen hermitage. And I was looking at this film and trying to understand, where is their practice? And their practice was, actually, they didn't really sit in meditation at all. They were in life. They were gardening, they were cooking, they were looking after the cows, they were in the forest, they were doing things. And what was at the back of their practice, or the back of, was a koan, was their koan. So the koan was making reality unstable. The koan is basically an invitation to non-duality, because it undoes the concepts that we have, the dualistic concepts of me and the world and reality. So the koan is disintegrating our given dualistic conceptual world. But that was their total practice. And it was really interesting to see that they were just doing ordinary life and they're being aware and being present, but their koan was their practice. If you look at Zen, you're going to find dualistic practice. There's going to be a lot of things. The way you do things, that you have to do them right. You have to make effort. You have to do Zazen enough times. You get a stick from the Zen master, etc. There's a lot of dualistic, should we say, development of the person, development of powers and qualities, and the non-dual, the koans, and the something which is empty, which doesn't have any description and doesn't have any format. The same in the Tibetans. The Tibetan practice is very dualistic to some extent. What the Lama says, the visualizations and the practices and the mantras and very much, but Dzogchen and so on is right there. You go towards it, like I was saying, climbing up the mountain. And the same with the Pali. What I was trying to do today is to show that that's also in the Pali canon, this sense of the two together. So I think we have to look at all Buddhist paths as having the two together. One is not instead of the other. Now, what's happened today is that quite a few non-dual teachers said, look, we can't leave the teaching only to those that have gone on a long, long journey, like the Dzogchen. My Dzogchen teacher is Keith Dowman, and he's an old friend. And he said it when he started to teach sky gazing. I've been on retreats with him. I can't wait. We can't wait anymore. The world needs this teaching right now. I can't wait and leave it just to those that have got to the high place and then giving this ultimate non-dual teaching. The teaching has to be there. It has to be, people need it, the world needs it. So the non-dual teaching has to find its place now, even to those that are not developed 20 years practice. So what's happening today, and I think it's really in the non-traditional place, is that the non-dual teaching, which used to be right at the top of the pyramid, the top of the mountain, has actually become available also at the bottom. And that's a situation of today. And so I go along with that. And I'm ready to teach non-duality when someone is ready to listen. And maybe some of you say in this class today, sorry, I don't understand a word. But okay, we'll put up with that. So I might get it wrong, of course. But I think that to me, I go along with my teachers who say it's it's okay to give the non-dual teaching today to people that are not so experienced, not at the top, because it's really needed, and we can't any longer just have it as a kind of a esoteric teaching for the few that get there. And there's, you know, Dalai Lama said that he practices Dzogchen and so on. And so it's asking, so people say, well, can I practice? And it's often given very simply. So my sense is that whatever we're ready for, when I teach, it's whatever people are ready for. Whatever I feel there is an audience, whatever is possible. I don't really have a distinction of how much non-duality. So I can teach dualistic practice very much down, you know, step by step. If I feel that this particular context, this group, this person, whatever needs it, or I can go to a non-dual place if I feel this context allows it. That's my choice. It's quite possible to say, you know, you made a wrong choice. I don't know, really. I'm finding my way as well. But that's the way I see things at the moment, that the two need to be in dialogue, like in the Heart Sutta. The form and the formless need to be in dialogue together. And we go more one or more the other, depending on our context, our situation. But they need to be in dialogue. We need to be there with both. And I think in Zen practice, it's very good practice to really feel that. I'm sure that, you know, you'll benefit from both in Zen. Zen is a very good example of how both of them are in dialogue, if you like. The form and the formless are in dialogue with each other, or the non-dual koan and the dualistic. It's, we have to sit now, or whatever. This is effort needed, and so on. They're in dialogue. Excuse the image. It's a little bit like I said, how we drive a car. In a way, if you drive a car worrying about what might happen, checking yourself all the time, being a bit conceptual about it, you actually might have more of a problem driving. But if you kind of feel open, free, and just aware, the driving will happen by itself, and you'll be right there with the driving. I was working for years and years of my profession working in science, and people would say, you know, how can you work with science coming from a non-dual place? It's like being a carpenter. So you go into work and you work as you would a carpenter, or as a cook, as you make food. Abstract thought is just a form of mental activity. So you do abstract thought as much as you need, and you feel it as being natural, but you don't need to invest in it. All your whole totality, you can say, this is, I let my mind, now my mind needs abstract thought, my work needs abstract thought, I'm going to do that. Somewhere at the back, you can still feel you are a big, free person now, using your mind as abstract conceptual thinking. A big, free, heartful person that is utilizing the mind in this way or another, just like utilizing the mind in order to cook a good meal. A big, free, open, aware person cooking a meal. I think, by the way, what I was saying to Suzanne about the Zen very much knows that. The way the Zen, you know, Zen activity, cleaning and so on is very much about daily life activity, but coming from it from a place of a big, free awareness that is just doing what's needed, because that's life. So I don't know, Adam, if that helps in any way. Maybe yes, maybe no. But that's the way, shall we say, that's the way you know, I've been in my life all my life. I've been doing science, I've been building house, houses. I've been, doing all kinds of practical things, but never leaving that sense of a big awareness that's behind the functional life. The functional life doesn't need to take over all the space. So plenty of space in the mind and heart, and then the functional life doing what it needs to do. But it's a very important question that you asked. And I think that instead of seeing the Four Noble Truths as being a kind of a summary of the teaching, we need to see it as a process that happens in the moment. All four truths are constantly happening, and the text that I think confirms that is the Satipatthana Sutta, because the Satipatthana Sutta says, be mindful of Dharma. And what is Dharma? The Four Noble Truths, meaning be mindful, which is only in the present moment. It's not about a theory, it's in the present. Be mindful of the Four Noble Truths. That means that all the Four Noble Truths are happening in the present moment. So we are constantly cycling through them all the time. So you have a moment where we have some discomfort. Say your example of speech. You say something about somebody that is a bit blaming or whatever. There is in there the first noble truth, a little bit of discomfort. You don't feel entirely happy with that. The second truth is that you kind of know it, you know the difficulty of it, you let it go. Maybe you say, maybe you don't say, whatever, but you're seeing it, you're handling that discomfort. The third noble truth is the release that happens, where when you see that discomfort, you let it go in some way, or you go beyond it, or you kind of released from the difficulty of it. And the fourth noble truth is the way that you fit it all into the Buddhist path. This whole thing is happening, and then the fourth, the right speech it has become more deep. Through that process of all four truths, the right speech has become one more quality of you've gone deeper into right speech because of the third noble truth, which is a moment of clarity, liberation, freedom, and then your speech will be different because of that. So you've gone all through the four in 30 seconds, in 10 seconds. And I think that's the sense of how to work with the Four Noble Truths. Now, the Eightfold Path, we have to be careful here. It's translated as right speech, right this, right that. And I think that's not right. It's not the best way of translating, because in the Pali it's samma, and samma would be the fulfillment or the development or the refinement, the fulfillment of speech, the way, the potential we have in speech. The fulfillment of speech would be samma speech, or samma sati will be the fulfillment of mindfulness. So it's a process. The Eightfold Path is a process. So therefore, what helps that process? The third noble truth, that our moments of realization and clarity and ease. So we know ethics. We don't start with the Eightfold Path, start with ethics. We go through the whole Four Noble Truths, and that helps us to understand ethical behavior. because ethical behavior needs awareness that we know what to do, or we don't. So it's really needed. So that's the way I see it and the way I interpret it. But I have to say, there's many interpretations. There's many ways of looking at it. You don't need to just take, what I say, but that's the way I understand the Four Noble Truths. And it comes really from the Satipatthana Sutta, which says mindfulness of the Four Noble Truths, not keep taking them as a Buddhist teaching or concept, but as a practice. Mindfulness is always in the moment. It's always now. So Four Noble Truths in the now. And that really helps, I think, to understand it. It's not all my life. And eventually I reached the third noble truth at the end, after 40 years practice. It's happening all the time. The third noble truth, liberation, is happening constantly. Every time that we cycle through the Four Noble Truths, we just go deeper, 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 deeper all the time. I have to say, I fully respect any place that you choose, any of us choose, as being our primary entry gate, and you called it spear point, in our practice. And any of us will choose any place, for example, in the Eightfold Path. I don't go along with the reading of the Eightfold Path that says all the Eightfold Path is for the sake of virtue or conduct. It's much more a cycle that everything supports everything else. That means the virtue will support awareness, and awareness will support virtue, and right view is often given as the sort of a culmination of the Eightfold Path. But right view is needed for ethics, and ethics is needed for right view, as you say. So I see the whole thing as being much more cyclical. All of the Eightfold Path are like a hologram. They all support each other. They're all needed, and they all help each other. And what is true is that what turns us on in the spiritual journey is good enough. In other words, if you're kind of devoted to the spear point, and that's the way can take you all the way, and someone else, it will some other spear point will take them all the way. We can't do the whole thing. We can't have 10,000 suttas and say that it's all my practice. We need to kind of go into what fascinates us. But I have to say that the right view, as the first of the Eightfold Path, I do see the right view as non-duality. And I have here a sutta called Kaccayana-gota Sutta, and the Buddha said, this world is supported by a duality, that of existence and non-existence. But when one sees that the world appears as it is, with clarity, then non-existence in relation to the world doesn't occur. And when one sees that the world vanishes like emptiness as it is, you see it with clarity, then existence doesn't occur to you, objects don't occur to you. In other words, a little bit like the Heart Sutta, when emptiness arises, then form is not relevant to that moment. And when form arises, emptiness not relevant to that moment. The two are in dialogue, and it's very much right view. That's right view is in one of the suttas. So I think that we don't need to make it too complicated, but a sense of a relational world, which I think would talk to you, Richard, because ethics is about a relational world when I sat with Ajahn Amaro in Amaravati some time back, and we talked and talked and talked, and then at the end of our discussion, I was just going, and he said, "Don't ever forget the importance of conduct." And it's exactly what you're bringing up, Richard, here, that we can't be lost in abstraction, in some sort of ultimate kind of view. We also need, as they say in the Middle East, believe in God, but don't forget to tie your camel. So we need both, though. In my view, we need both. But believing in God can help you tie your camel, and tying your camel can help you believe in God. But we do need them both.